or done rather. So we're laying down on our backs. By the way, before you get to laying down, I don't know if one can be over laying down, make sure you've got a belt or a strap or something similar, or something equally effective. A head support, I think, is useful for most people, because most people are tight in the neck and shoulders, because they're short in the psoas, because we're stooped over, and because we're sitting on hard chairs that aren't very ergonomic, pretty though they are. Now we're going to raise one leg, doesn't matter which leg, and bring the belt around the front of the heel. The front of the heel is where the heel intersects with the arch. And then move your foot against the strap, or even the strap against the foot, for a purpose. So here that movement we call play, Vajrasati Yoga, Lila in Sanskrit, or Sanskritam, I should say. In Sanskrit is Sanskritam. And as you move your foot, the purpose of the play, and that's the second part of these three parts that always go together, is absorption. Absorption, or you could say reabsorption, is another way of putting it. And there should be signs of absorption. You should feel absorbed, start to feel absorbed. And that's very pleasant. It's sort of like being drawn into something, melted into something. One of the words that we use for absorption in the Sanskrit tradition is layanam, or just laya, which means melting. It's one of its meanings, is melting. There's a sense of melting into something else. Like if you leave a bit of chocolate on your lap or something and it melts into your trousers, and it's a bit of a catastrophe, but you know, the trousers and the chocolate are sort of merged, you know. So that's the same sort of thing. It's like you leave a bit of chocolate on a surface and it melts into it. So we're melting into this moment. And signs include absorption, just general feelings of intimacy increasing. Spontaneity is another sign. So the signs come onto the Sanskrit word lakshana, which can mean sign or indicator or mark. And also the breath comes out of a sort of uncertain feeling, uncertain because we weren't in connection with real information, but instead with abstracted information that is abstracted away from the interdependent now, which I call the goddess. Not just me, lots of people go to the goddess. Okay, bring that foot down and raise the other one up. Similarly, don't forget to take some deep breaths. Hopefully those deep breaths are beginning to move things along for you. So play, we've got the strap positioned at the intersection of the heel into two of the foot arches, the medial and lateral arches. And we're playing, and the purpose is absorption. And the signs of absorption include feeling absorbed, the breath coming out of a shallower breath, which indicates uncertainty, and we're uncertain when we're not in the field, as it were, of now, which is why there are various books, such as Ajahn Chah's book called Now is the Knowing, and other books such as Eckhart Tolle's book, which is called The Power of Now. Right. And that book, Power of Now, I'm presuming didn't just sell multi-million copies because of Oprah Winfrey, although I think it probably helped, who liked the book. But I'm presuming, not having read it, I saw it, it's on our bookshelf, but I've never read it. I'm presuming it's got powerful content in it about the power of now. Right? So what is now? Well, you can enter into it through particular expressions of now, thoughts, feelings, emotions, physical sensations, which you stimulate in yoga through movement such as the movement of your foot. And then that stimulates a stretch and contraction of the muscles on the front and the back of the leg, which massages. In other words, it moves lymph and it moves blood and it melts fascia. And then through these sensations, absorption begins. Okay, now release that leg, put it down on the floor. Now we're going to simply raise both legs and catch them both in the strap, similarly around the front of the heel. Now, when you've got both feet, there's lots of things you can do in terms of play. I'll mention some of them that you can improvise. Moving your pelvis so that one hip comes towards its own ear and then away, and vice versa. So it's like a bit like wagging your tail. It's one thing you can do. You can also move the legs to the left or right, both together or separately. You can also take the legs wider or narrower. And with the strap, some people can take the legs very, very wide, and some people quite wide, and it's not at all important how wide it is. If you do take the legs wide, the advantage of using the strap is that it helps the adductors when you bring your legs back together, because you can pull on the strap to help. So the inner thigh muscles otherwise have to do it on their own. So there's a few examples of the ways in which you can play. You can pull your legs towards you more, is another. So start playing, but to make it clearer for us, the purpose of play changes the way that we play. The purpose of play changes the way that we play. So if you know you're playing to absorb, to first become deeper connected with the sensations of here and now, and going beyond your initial reactions to the way things are, into a deeper relationship still, as it were, deeper than your reactions to the way things are. So that's part of play as well, ducking underneath conditioned reactions to label the body as mine or good or bad, or these kind of young or old, these kind of labels that the mind jumps to stick on to the living moment. We just keep going deeper. So loads of play, lots of deep breath, jaw soft, and play. You know you're doing it right if the signs of absorption start to manifest. Deeper breath, confidence increasing, a sort of natural confidence, not a confidence that references the outside at all. That's not real confidence, but a natural confidence that doesn't need affirmation at all from the outside. Natural confidence doesn't need affirmation at all. Okay, well done. Release your feet if you're ready. You might not be ready yet, but when you are. And put the strap to one side. Keep your feet off the floor, or bring them off the floor if you put them down, so your hips are flexed. Now, keeping the hips flexed, obviously muscles are doing that. Doesn't feel like a big, strong muscular action, but muscles are doing that. The hip flexors primarily, but also muscles along the back have to release. Now, a yogin of high quality, a high standard yogin, she or he is interested in the subtle, the sukshma sharira, subtle body. So notice the relationship. The breath is a big part of the subtle body. Notice the relationship between the way you're breathing and whether or not the lower back through to the tailbone releases. And if it does, the legs will drift towards you. It's not pulling, not the same as pulling them. That's reactivity. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not what we're doing in yoga. So imagine and feel the back chain softening. Your hands can be where you like, on the chest, upper chest, on the floor, doesn't matter. So a softening of the back chain is also a softening of the mind. Now, we're going to reach round the legs and give them a hug. I've pretty much, as far as I remember, always been a knees apart kind of leg hugger. Because I get more stretch through the back chain that way. There's a bit more space. But if you prefer legs together, there's nothing wrong with that. So the very simple test is to ask what is effective in terms of our goal, and our goal is absorption. Absorption in the field, you know, some of you might know a little bit about particle physics, and you know the wave-particle sort of relationship. The wave being the non-specific, the non-expressed, you can say, the non-local aspect of energy that then becomes specific and local and particular in the particle formation, which manifests upon observation. When you observe in any way, then it forces, as it were, the wave to particularize. Now, what we're doing is reverse engineering of that. We feel particular sensations, memories, likes and dislikes. And we're using those to trace back to the wave underneath. The non-particular field, we call it, that is the whole behind the particular. In other words, it's the unified field which we bias into manifestation out of habit. Okay. Slow and easy release the legs. No, don't try and get any of that I just said. Just let it wash over you. You know, there's something that will get it. Now release your block from underneath your head. Put your hands underneath your head instead. And take some deep breaths. So breath is everything to a yoga practitioner. Breath is everything. It's our way in, as it were, to the subtle body. The subtle body is an experience of our own body more subtly. It's more of the undercurrents that manifest as the particulars of our experience. So there are undercurrents that are sort of shifts and movements underneath. And that's the subtle body. And those shifts, just like the Earth's magma, condition what happens in our particular experience, whether we get neck pain or knee ache or back ache, or whether we get a tummy ache, or whether we feel completely fine, whether the mind is agitated or calm, whether we feel emotionally patient or impatient, all of this and more. Now we're going to flex up our hips again, so we've already flexed our hips a few times. In other words, we're going to let the thighs drift towards the pelvis. Now that's not just about the hip flexors, it's about the back chain releasing, and again I want you to focus on that more. So the hip flexors could pull the legs towards us, but they pull more and more against the back chain. So the back chain is just a way of talking about the entire muscle connectivity along the back, right the way through to the tailbone. More subtle is to feel and release a sort of permissiveness that doesn't just come from the back chain, but comes from every aspect of your being through to the back chain. If something's expressed in a manifest way in the back chain, in this case, then it will be affecting not just that, but our emotions, our thoughts, and a release there has to be a holistic release. Not because I say it is, but just because it is. That's the way that things are. Now lift up your head, and your elbows and knees can come towards each other. Hand position can change. Hands could be higher, hands could be lower. Hands can oscillate between higher and lower, because your neck should feel peaceful. So hand position makes a difference to your neck, but also abdominal tone makes a difference to your neck as well. Come down slow, feel the abdominal tone, especially the upper abdominal tone lowering you. Bring your feet back down, and then do me a favor and take a deep breath in with a sigh like exhale. And don't just do one, take a few sigh-like exhales, learning to give whatever's there is what we do in yoga. That's called bhakti yoga, B-H-A-K-T-I, bhakti yoga. And it's the yoga of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's the yoga to some extent of the Shakta tradition to some extent. But a sense of giving, it's like in an ordinary way, like you give yourself to warm sun on your face in the morning or a cool breeze on a hot day. What are easy ways of giving. Now release your hands from behind your head, stay relaxed. It's the most important part of yoga, isn't it? To stay relaxed. And then bend up your legs again. Now we're going to reach through the inside of our legs. We're going to hold our big toes. It's not altogether unlike being like a great big blooming baby laying on its back. So laying like a great big blooming baby, and you might roll hither and thither, here and there, with a purpose, right? We're not just rolling around daydreaming, and Jim's voice is like the comforting radio on in the background. Content doesn't really matter that much, it's just company. That's a nice function. I'd like to serve that function to some extent during lockdown, but more beneficial, much more beneficial, is to roll with purpose and to look for tangible signs that that purpose is being reached. Purpose is absorption, tangible signs are the breath coming out of the uncertain, which is where the breath is shallow, isn't it? When we're not sure about something. We feel that we, as a, me as a construct has to comprehend something. So the opposite of not knowing is knowing. And you can reach the field of knowing, not by grasping, but through simple reverse engineering, moving in ways that open up your breath. Simple as that. If you're breathing in the way that you would breathe if you were in the field of knowing, then breathe in that way and it will drop you into that field, right? The field of knowing is just resting in the wave underneath the particular particles of what's happening to me. This emotion, that thought, this sensation, this pleasure, this pain. So we're rolling around. You can do other things too, like extend a leg or partially extend a leg or extend both or extend one and then the other. There's multifarious things you can do. You can take the legs really wide. I like to do that. Not everyone does, but I personally get a lot out of that. So, but the point is getting what out of it? Absorption. Getting what out of it? Absorption. That's all we're concerned with. We're not trying to get more bendy, because that's a loser's game. For a start, we're all too old to get as bendy as anyone who's, 14, 15, 16, who's a gymnast. You ain't never going to get as bendy as them, no matter how much you stretch. So if you think getting more and more bendy, then, you're not going to win. Right? But if you realize it's absorption, then you win, not only in terms of achieving your aim, but also in the fact that now is a kind of power, a kind of Shakti. Okay, release your legs when you're ready, which is possibly now. Place your feet down and roll over when you're ready onto your side and then straight onto what I call your tummy, because it's your tummy. You just lay straight over on your tummy. You can be up on your elbows, forearms and wrists, and sometimes a little roll about feels good. So why would a roll about feel good? Well, it would feel good if you kept length in your tummy and lower back. And how would you keep that length? A bit of traction on the mat, pulling back into the mat to pull the belly forwards. And if you move as you create that stretch in the belly, then you can really feel yourself stretching into various parts of the body in ways that are absorbing, and that's also enjoyable, by the way. It's a stated aim of yoga, and this predates the Tantra. Tantrikas sometimes like to claim this is a specifically Tantric thing, but it predates the Tantra. Specific aim of yoga is enjoyment, as well as absorption. And through that enjoyment and absorption, one is, as it were, spontaneously thrown back onto one's essence nature, which is profoundly free and pure. That's my summary of the yoga path. Okay, now from here, we're going to try putting our hands on our own bum and interlacing the fingers. So that's a little tricky, but I reckon you can just about do it. So it takes a little bit of back chain strength. Legs are staying on the floor and you're just resting your hands on your own bum. And it depends how long your arms are. Maybe they've gone beyond your bum onto your thighs. Or maybe they're, right at the top of the bum, near the back. And just breathe into it. Here's a quick quote about Patanjali, and this is the translation of B.K. Iyengar. Practice and non-reaction are required to still the patterning of consciousness. Otherwise, consciousness takes itself to be that patterning. This is relevant to right now. Practice and non-reaction. Non-reaction, don't sort of react, non-reactivity. What's the sort of opposite of reactivity? Response. What's response? Another synonym for response? Love. And relaxation. Okay, release your hands, place one on top of the other, rest your head on your hands, huff and puff a bit. Huff and puff a bit. So practice and non-reaction. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. Practice and non-reaction. Okay, pop up onto your elbows, forearms and wrists again, if you don't mind. Stretch your legs back. I find it most effective to flick my legs back, to be honest with you, because the efficacy one wants is to stretch the inner groins and to turn the thighs to face straight down. And of course, we're going to stretch the belly as well, so use the forearms to stretch the belly. Calmness is a massive connection, has a massive connection with the release of physical problems, as we might call problems. So breathing easy. As Arjun Samega once said, problems have to have something to attach to. I'll leave that profound. I won't explain that. Okay, now we're going to bend one leg and see if we can take hold of it. Okay, round the shin or the ankle, that's all. We're just going to breathe into that. Perhaps you feel stretching your quadricep muscles. Breathe, keep the jaw soft. It's enough usually, it's enough, it's stretched. One or two people may have another level of range, in which case you can turn your hands from holding to this position. So you might, if you're interested, you might want to observe that the hand will turn round, so the fingers come forward. You mustn't force or push. The release must come entirely from the quadriceps saying yes, not from the hands or the hand saying yes, but the quadriceps, the front thigh, relaxing, relaxing. Like we did with the back chain earlier, like we visualized and felt. The back chain. It's going to be connected with your breath, it's going to be connected with your heart and mind. There is no release of the so-called physical body without release of all the things that the subtle energy is affecting. You want to change the way the subtle energy is moving so your physical body is relaxed. It will also change the way thoughts, feelings, emotions move. Slow and easy release as Ardha Bekasana. Take a breath Stretch out a bit. You can do that any way that's effective, any way that releases your breath. And if ready, or when ready, similarly, fold the other leg and take hold, probably around the shin or foot, and breathe into that. So a great yoga practitioner doesn't need great, big, strong, in-your-face sensations. Not everybody needs to watch blockbuster movies. Some people like a subtle movie with lots of space and stillness in it, and subtlety. And we all might think, sometimes we want to be entertained, we want it to be dramatic, but actually, the subtle offers a lot more usually, gives us a lot more. We have to sort of open up to it. And that's done through the breath right now. Again, one or two might change the hand position, as I mentioned on the other side. It does require, of course, various levels of mobility and some strength in the back chain as well. But the most important thing for everyone here is the yes that we need to say through the quadriceps, through the breath, through the heart, through the mind. Super relaxing. And it has to be total experience for it to work at all. For it to be partial, it has to be total. For it to release your quadriceps, it has to also release your breath. It has to also release your mind. And we're not always willing to release our minds because most of us have become addicted. That's all it is, an addiction to thinking. We don't want anyone to take it away from us. It's like someone who's addicted to whatever, cigarettes or something. We're addicted to thinking. My thinking, we get a bit Gollum-esque about it. Okay, I won't do my Gollum impression. It's quite good, but I won't do it. Okay, release and take a few deep breaths. Okay, jaw soft, throat soft, eyes soft, brain soft. We're going to roll over and bring our knees up and then come up from the side. So roll over, bring your knees up and then come up from the side. Now I don't know if you've got yoga blocks, but if you have, put them short end to short end, voila. Which of course, as Tash will tell you, is Swedish for 2 blocks, short end to short end, voila. It's actually not, that's a lie. It's French for look. So voila, see, look here. And you sit, Tash was confused for a minute, she's like, oh, maybe it is, I don't know. No. We're going to sit on the blocks. I'm showing you this way around, but you can be on your mat and your feet are on the mat too, because some people, I'm not in this category, but some people find the back of their heels quite sensitive. So having some padding underneath is nice. If you haven't got 2 blocks like this, why not 2 books with a towel on top to soften? But obviously those books should be the same size. So maybe if you don't have 2 books the same size, you should buy a repeat copy of one of your favorite books. And then you can have it in 2 different rooms. You can read it whenever you want. Draw the butterfly out and back if you haven't already. Take your hands next to your knees and just give the floor, as it were, a sort of rub, as if you're rubbing the floor. And then that moves your rotator cuff muscles, the ones that attach your arm bones into your shoulder blades. And then drag your hands back, drag them back and stretch your chest muscles. And bring your hands down to the block. Now, depending on arm to torso ratio, you're going to either need to bend your elbows and point them backwards, if you've got long arms relative to your torso, as I know some of you do. If you've got short arms relative to your torso, you might need to be on your fingertips. And if you've got arms that are my length relative to your torso, then the shoulders can stay down and the hands can be flat. So all of those are equally valid. What we want is a feeling of the inner and outer body. The inner body goes up, the outer body sloughs down relative to it. So what is the inner body? The central column of the spine, right up and includes right up through the skull. When yoga teachers talk about a golden thread pulling you up, it's that sort of feeling we're talking about now. But it's almost as if that central channel in the skull pushes up to the highest point of the head, and then everything sloughs down from there. Front of the body, back of the body, sides of the body, relative to the pushing up. It's as if the pushing up or causing the sloughing down, as it were. Breath is everything, don't forget that. Play is part of your ability to free breathe. So I commonly find my pelvis is moving investigatively, exploratively, to look for height. Investigatively, exploratively, to look for height. Breathing deep, breathing honest. Okay. Dandasana for me is the best. There's no pose I like more, but the reason for that is because I'm dancing with it. I'm looking for height, but I'm not kicking down the door. I'm knocking on the door. Can I come in? Can I come in? I'm always knocking on the door. And I wait, and I'm ready for the invitation. I'm always ready. It comes when it comes, though. That part is nature's pace. Okay, well done. Ease out. Hopefully that's made your legs burn. Okay, I think I can see some, a couple of you got steam coming off your legs. That's good, that's what we want. Now we're going to put the blocks to one side. We're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So coming into that as soon as you're ready. But actually before you do, forget as soon as you're ready. Don't come in as soon as you're ready. Let's measure up. One of the many ways in which you can measure up. So we're going to lay flat down on the tummy. And we're going to place the fingers so that the fingertips are directly underneath the shoulders and not projecting forwards off the shoulders at all. I guess I should have said this before as well. Make sure you're in the middle of your mat as much as possible at this point. You can adjust it in a minute. Toes are tucked under. I like this posture already. It's not entirely different from Ashtangasana, Namaskara, a wonderful pose that we might talk about in a minute. Now from here, push up. And once you're on hands and knees, you've pretty much got the right distance there between the hands and feet. Check that your hands are equidistant from the sides of the mat and adjust. Spread the aponeurosis, the connective tissue that covers the palms of the hands, enjoyably. I repeat what I mentioned earlier, that it is part of not just tantric yoga to have sort of worldly success and enjoyment, but also it's part of Sankhya yoga, overtly. Okay, lift your bum up. The enjoyment is always accompanied with the aim of freedom. You don't in yoga just have the aim of enjoyment, you have it alongside the aim for freedom, moksha. Now, you get freedom spontaneously, but you trigger that spontaneity by entering into the now. This is the power of now. It has the power to free you. The power of now. I'm afraid I don't know the quote very well. I should look it up. But in the Bible, there's a quote I've always liked about the lilies in the field, that they don't spin and toil. That's in the New Testament. And that sort of empty of grasping attitude is very much at the heart of successful yoga. Absorption into the field, as it were, the one plane, which some people do call God. That's a perfectly valid name for the field, and it has powers. Anyone who's into the idea of God and they've really thought it through, you ask them what's God's powers, they say omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotency, all-knowing, omniscience, omnipresent, everywhere, omnipotent. Have the power that you need for now. That's what that kind of means. Okay, come down, hands and knees. Take a few deep breaths, and there may be wagging of the tail. It's coming from the core center. Karana Shakti Swato Unubhavat. Breathing into that. Breathing into that. Okay. raise one hand and the opposite leg. Whether the foot on the floor has got toes tucked under or lifted, it doesn't matter. And then allow it to be very loose and free. Don't try and control the movements or think about. Patanjali is very clear that yoga is not about memory. Smriti. It's one of the modifications in consciousness that yoga is transcending. So don't try and do or not do or grasp or think about. Just let the arm and leg move in the sort of free way that a compass needle moves. And as some of you know, I was a child in the 70s, and I used to watch Blue Peter, and they used to seem to have dowsing on there quite a lot, and I was fascinated by that as a kid. That sort of free movement of the rods and that people used to use to find water. They kind of move very freely in the dowser's hand. That's the sort of image, if you know that image also. It's the compass needle. Okay, back to hands and knees, catch your breath. Take a few deep breaths. Obviously, if you've got any sort of problem with the bursa in your knees, by the way, these kind of poses you can put more padding under your knees. When you're ready, opposite, opposite. Opposite leg, opposite arm, and then allow it to be free. The hand can drop or lift. So a sense of letting go. But letting go, actually requires full attention. Because what happens normally is subconsciously we don't let go at all. We just give over to patterns conditioned into the nervous system. That's not letting go. God, the goddess, the now, whatever you want to call it, is unconditioned. That's one of the descriptions. Unconditioned, uncreated, uncompounded. Whether you're into mystical Christianity, whether you're into particle physics, whether you're into Buddhism, it's the same. Okay, when you're ready, come back, 2 hands and knees, and take another deep breath. Now we're going for Adho Mukha Svanasana again, but really wide, right? Really wide. So for me, really wide means my index finger and middle finger are coming close to being off the mat, and my outer toes are off the edge of the mat. So, but that's the dimensions of my body. So feel what feels spacious for you. Might be less wide, might be more wide. But make sure you keep some contact with the mat on the hands and feet. And then take breaths. Plural, take breaths. Breathe deep, play freely. If you can see the patterns, if you relax into the subtle body, then you have what's called omniscience. It means all-knowing, but what's actually happening is you know now. You don't know everything. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know now. Okay, well done again, everyone. Come down, nice and easy. And we're going to take a seated position in Padangustasana. Now, some of you will definitely know already that you need to sit on 2 blocks or the equivalent. And if you're on 2 blocks, you're going to need another block or books, whatever, or equivalent behind you for Padangustasana. Some know that you're fine and comfortable on 1 block, so maybe some even need 3. The legs will come over to the side as the Padangustasana, like this. So straightforward. This lower shin area presses directly into this foot arch. So 1 foot goes one way, the other foot goes the other way. And I very much savour a lift and shift. I very much enjoy that, a lift and shift. But I'm not just randomly moving because everyone else is moving and Homo sapien subject to peer group pressure. I'm really paying attention. I'm really feeling what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And that's the thing here, to really feel what you're doing as you're doing it. Don't make token actions. When ready, we're going to lift up from our back leg on an inhalation and turn away from our feet on the exhalation. You may find it useful to have your hand on the block behind you, certainly if you're on more height. Eyes soft, breathing deep, brain relaxed. I would say that more than 90% of yoga is undoing, and less than 10% is doing. In the same way that if you had a canoe tied up to the shore and you tried paddling that canoe, but it was tied up, you could expend a lot of energy and get nowhere. If you simply untie that canoe, one simple stroke of your paddle, and you glide away almost effortless. So undoing. The tension in your back leg that expresses through your breath. Undoing. And don't muddle up undoing for another form of doing. Don't try to do undoing. Right? Which is an easy mistake to make. Undoing is much more sensual than that. It's much more, it's super sensual. It's a super sensual surrender. Yajna. It's the Sanskrit word, yajna. Okay, well done, return to center. I love that pose. Let's bring our legs to the other side after extending them out. You might want to give yourself a little energy bath, which I enjoy, and I hope you do too. Energy baths should be everywhere you give them. You shouldn't exclude anywhere. So the face, the ears, the neck, the chest, the back in front of the legs, even the soles of the feet, if you can reach. And you try and get everywhere, like you do when you're putting on sun cream. You know, there's little bits of your back you can't quite get to, so you can get those as well. Right? Now that's very traditional, and it should feel right. For it to be right, it's got to feel right. You can be rubbing, but don't attack. And this goes way back to the origins of Hatha Yoga, which we think, not we, scholars, I've had nothing to do with this research, but I've read their research, think comes from Kerala and Karnataka originally, and then ends up in Tibet, where it still is now. Okay, legs over, and Bhutan as well. Legs over to the other side. So energy baths, don't underestimate them, and do recognize that everyone does them. Even people who would never dream of entertaining such a word as energy baths, they do them. People on the train, you see on the road, they do this over there. Oh, that's an energy bath, it's the same thing. Okay, so make sure you got that pressure, make sure there's a release. Inhale, lift up, feel the release, exhale, turn, feel the release in the back leg. Everything's about the breath. I'm sure you've heard me say that before. So by now I'm sure you're realizing that there's a reason I keep saying it. It's all about the breath. Because the breath is the indicator of the profound release that's like untying that canoe. It means that any doing is very minimal. It just needs one paddle of the oar and you glide off into the lake, you know. One of those marvelous, enormous lakes in Canada or Thailand or somewhere like that. Or in the lochs in Scotland. You just glide off, hardly any effort, because the lake is calm, flat and still. You concentrate, and what I'm trying to say is concentrate on the undoing. And then the doing is almost takes care of itself. Concentrate on the undoing. That's felt through the breath. Okay, well done. Return to center and take a breath or two. We're going to extend our legs out. We're going to dismount from our block or blocks. Take a breath or two. We're going to come into the celebratory pose. Well, I think of it as a celebratory. Abhaya padangustasana. Watch out for confusing 3 words in Sanskrit. Abhaya, ubhaya, which means both, ubhaya. This is what we're doing now, ubhaya, both big toes. From abhaya, fearlessness, from just bhaya, after the breath. Anyway, there's a little brief Sanskrit thing to watch out for. Lean back and play. Okay, and play for a purpose. If you know the purpose is absorption, and that absorption creates a feeling of bliss often, or happiness or enjoyment, because what you're absorbed into is what you've never been separate from, what it sometimes is called yoni in the Sanskrit language, which means source or womb or origin, yoni. So that's the wave, right? We get obsessed with the particle, what's happening to me, here and now. What we're advised to do is trace back to the wave. Or to spin that metaphor a little differently, the wave itself is part of the ocean. So breathe deep. Don't imagine anything or fantasize or project. Just play. Get into the real experiences you're having. And play in a way that does conduce to getting into the real experiences you're having. Look for the richness. And play in ways that conduce to the richness. And then gradually that richness will start drawing you into itself. It's like she, if you kind of move into her open arms, she'll then wrap those arms around you and she'll draw you into her chest, as it were. It's a metaphor for the field, because it has this benevolent, come to me kind of quality. Come to my heart. And she wants to fold you back into herself because you are herself. Legs can be together, apart, one extended, one straight. Doesn't matter, does it? What matters is that the efficacy of your yoga practice in absorbing you back into the field, and that shows up in your breath, straightforwardly shows up in your breath. Okay, you could keep playing with that. You might want to play on another 20, 30 seconds. And then we're gradually, in our own time, winding that down a little bit. We're going to come into a squatting position, for which many of us do need to have support under our heels, and we should take it. Okay. I'm recommending to you to squat like I'm squatting, so the arms can come on the inside of the legs and the hands can come down fairly low, and that elevates the chest up. We spoke a bit about the back chain earlier, and this is great for that back chain. So some of you will feel it all the way down to the tailbone and to the muscles between the tailbone and pubic bone, which we often feel as a little sort of release, breath-centered release or stretch close to the tailbone. You won't be able to feel these subtle sensations if there's too much noise. And by noise, I mean too much focus on thoughts. Thoughts are noisy. breath is everything, isn't it? Here and now. So if you're thinking, I don't know, is breath everything? What's Jim talking about? What's all this goddess stuff? Why does he keep saying, you know, that's thinking, right? You won't get it like that because thinking's too loud to pick up the subtle things that we're being pointed to by yoga. That's as simple as that. So what do you have to do? You give thought back to its origin, to its yoni, to its source. The interdependent field. How do you give it back? Well, you just recognize that the thoughts we're having are not self-created. We didn't make them. They arise spontaneously. And they're connected with who our parents were, where we live in the world, what age we live in, who our friends are, what we read, and so on. A few more deep breaths just as you are. A few more deep breaths just as you are. Breath is everything. Don't get sidetracked from that. Okay? It's just two paths, doubt and knowing. Okay, release nice and easy. Well done. Give your legs a little stretch out and a little energy bath. So that can be quite vital if it feels right for it to be vital. And you do it everywhere that you can. Don't forget, you know, if you don't, when you put your sun cream on, if you miss a little patch and you get a little bit of burnt bit on your back, try and get to that bit as well, without force, because you don't want that little burnt bit. It's always horrible, isn't it? But get everywhere that you can in the body, exclude nowhere, and so you bring energy everywhere. It's called Vyana Vayu. And once you've done that, we're coming to draw one leg back, lift it up, give it a little hug. So we're going to bring the foot, sorry I slapped my foot, probably didn't make a nice noise for you, into the crook of the opposite elbow, like this. Okay? We want to avoid twisting the foot medially. In other words, we don't want the foot to turn or twist at the ankle so that it's longer at the outer ankle and shorter on the inner. We don't want that. We want to keep the foot level, like it would be if you were standing on the floor. The same relationship between inner and outer ankle as you'd have if you were just standing up. Huh? Or perhaps even better than when you're standing up, because some of us do have pronated arches, collapsed arches, so that would collapse the weight more on the inside. Anyway, playing backwards, forwards, left, right, for a purpose. That purpose should be showing up in signs. Principal signs, the breath. Becoming more powerful in its spontaneity. So yoga is a powerful experience. The word Shakti means power in Sanskrit. And the Shakta religion is the goddess worshipping religion. And the goddess is just the field. It's just, you know, it's quite nice to put it in the feminine for many reasons. First of all is because the goddess is the original religion of Homo sapiens. Archaeologically, we can see that the goddess is the original. Could go in, could talk to you about why that is, and talk about archaeological sites and so on. But anyway, okay. Release your legs slow and easy. Now it's not just your hip; it's your back chain that got to stretch there, which is good. Stretch out your legs. Again, a little energy bath. Come on, make it dynamic enough for you. It doesn't have to be super dynamic necessarily. It really depends on what you need. Sometimes you think, oh, I need to do this. Come on, me, you know, wake up, wake up, wake up. And other times you don't. And other times you need it to be more gentle. So do what's right for you. If you ever have seen Tibetan yoga, you'll see it is dynamic, very dynamic. And Tibetan yoga is based on original Hatha yoga. The word Hatha, in fact, features first in Buddhist texts from the 8th century. When you're ready, same thing as before, bend and place. And hug. And breathe, of course. Bend, place, hug, and breathe. And then the movement, we categorize that as play. Because it's investigative and it's purposed. So the movement we call it play. And how do you know how to move correctly? Is it written in some scripture? Sometimes you read yoga's 5,000 years old. It might be. There's no evidence to say that it is, but it might be. The only evidence we have goes back about 2,500 years. But it might be. But the point is, even the yoga that goes back 2,500 years doesn't tell you how to move your leg. No text, no tradition specifies. But they do tell you the goal. So then that tells you how to move, because you know you're moving for a specific purpose. So then you know how to move. If I move in a way that's absorbing, that isn't pulling me into the particulars, going back to the wave particle thing, but draws me into the field that the particulars are part of, but seem to our mind sometimes to be separate to. This is what return to the source means. The source, remember, is Sanskrit word yoni. That word yoni can be extrapolated to naming lots of other phenomena. Okay, well done. We're up nice and easy release. Now, I would love it if you had access to a wall or someone else's back, preferably for this. Now, I'm not going against the wall or someone else's back, but if I did have a wall or a door or someone else's back, I would put my back against it. But if I do that, you won't see me. I guess I could do it against this radiator. So I'll go back against the radiator just to sort of show you what I mean. You want your some support behind you. Can you see that? It's quite far away, isn't it? But hopefully you can see that's up against the wall. Ideally, it's not a radiator, but a radiator is better than nothing. And you bring your feet in close, your sacrum in to the block, and the block into the sacrum, or into a friend if you're practicing with someone else in the room. Go back to back. If there's tightness in your knees, don't have your feet too close to your pelvis. Yoga is a meditation. I'm sure you know that. Just reminding us. And the word meditation is a synonym for the word absorption. If you're someone who enjoys your first cup of tea or coffee, particularly coffee, I think, in the morning, and you have a sip and a smell of the coffee, and there's a moment or two when you're in meditation, because subject and object melt, and you've begun to enter the field of the goddess. Coffee drinkers regularly, but not for long, enter into the field of the goddess. They don't say that, they don't advertise that at the various coffee shops coming into the field of the goddess. People would get confused by the language. But they do. Maybe you know what I mean. So similarly here in padangustasana, study from the point of view of absorption. Study means play. If you look at scientists, they don't, people don't think of scientists as playing, but in a sense they are. They mix this thing in with that thing. They shake this thing up and stir it with another thing. They're playing with things to learn more about them. They put heat on a thing, coldness on a thing, expose it, put it in a vacuum. Right? Then they learn about that thing, the qualities of that thing. So similarly, your movements give you intimacy, and intimacy gives you knowledge. The breath should be spontaneous. Breathing still? If not, where did the mind go? Did it go to uncertainty? To reaching out? We become uncertain when we reach out because we reach out of the field that knows. What we need to know is now, there is nothing else. And now is a field that everything's part of. Just as the Earth's surface in all its diversity rides on a field underneath it. Okay, we're going to bring ourselves out to padangustasana, delicious though I find it. I hope you like it too. A quick time check. Oh, we're a bit of time. Okay, one more thing. One more thing. So you need a towel or a blanket. I'll grab a towel. I'll grab the ugliest towel in the house. This towel did not come into the house via me. I'm innocent. And you might think, Jim, how mean of you to be so mean about this towel with a Minnie Mouse on it. Just not very keen on it. I don't know why. Nothing against mice. Anyway, so once you've got a towel or a blanket, you're going to pleat it. Pleating it is, sorry to state the obvious, but pleating is backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And having pleated it, you then roll it into what some of you will be familiar with, what I call a snail. You know, roll it up, roll it up, roll up, roll up. Okay, you end up with something like that, maybe neater. Okay. And because of the elasticity in my back, I'm very, very happy to put that on a higher support as well. Now, here's the thing. Your bum, you're going to be cross-legged in a minute, I'll show you. Your bum must stay on the ground. Don't try and get your head down by lifting your bum up. Instead, what most of us need to do is provide elevation for our head and elevation for our arms as well. Now, I've got the bare minimum elevation here. If I'm honest, most people need more than that. They need more height than that. They need more height than that. That's where they would go. And let me just briefly show you, because we haven't got very long. It's cross-legged, buttocks tucked under. This snail goes into your rib cage, the back of your ribs, and not into your lower back. And then you stretch down, keeping your bum on the floor. So give yourself more head support if you need to. If your bum feels like it's coming off the floor, your head then lowers probably to a brick or a support, and the hands to another support. It is possible to do it without any support, but I really don't think most people benefit from that. Most people benefit from keeping support. Okay, so when you're ready, you might have already started coming into it, which is good if you know it. Getting the support, I'll come and check that you're all in the right place as well. Okay. Crossed-legged. Good. Good, Sally. Just turn that 90 degrees around, that support you've got there. Just turn it 90 degrees. Okay, yeah, and then take it further from your back. So it should be in your middle back, not your lower back. Yeah, that's a bit further still, actually. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, don't sneak it back into your back. I saw the temptation to try. Cross leg, good, and lay down. Good. That looks great, Lisa. That looks like a little ledge behind you there. What's that? You could put your hands on that, couldn't you? What do you think? Yeah, go on. You can do it. Tone in the tummy from pubis to chest. Tone in the tummy from pubis to chest. Good. You can change the cross of your legs. Now, if you're tight in the shoulders, here's what I recommend. Stretch your arms straight up above you. In fact, let's all do it. Let's all do that, straight up above you. Bring your hands together. Bring your hands together. And then slowly draw them over your head, but tone your tummy as your arms are moving. So you should feel that if your arms move a millimeter down, your chest tones, your belly tones relative to that. So that it pulls on the front pelvis and elongates your back the more the arms come down. So take your time, feel the relative tone of the tummy and the arms stretching over. Good. Good, that's it, Lisa. Take it slower though. Take it slower. Yeah, so, yeah, that's it. So you feel that tone in the tummy. Sally, you can just have both feet on the floor. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. I'm hoping you feel. Looks like you are feeling that tone in the deep belly. Arms then can come forwards again onto the floor. Push down into the floor to push up. It's quite a big push you'll need. Push, push, push. Hands, use your hands, use your hands. That's it. Sit cross-legged just as you will. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. Excuse me. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. Fine to sit on a block, by the way. Om, of course, we know is yes in Sanskrit. And then in some texts, in the Upanishads, in the Chandogya Upanishad in particular, Om is broken down into 3 Sanskrit phonemes, A-U-M. Phonemes are sound particles. And in the Tantra, an additional sound particle is added, the H sound, to make the tantric version of Om, which is Haum. Very much like Amen, so be it. Aho in Native American. All of them affirmations. Now, as we chant this Haum over an extended exhalation, let's imagine that the sound is moving up through the central channel from low to high, and eventually comes out through the crown of the head and connects us with the field, the wide open field that includes us. Take a deep breath in, inhale. I can't resist two more. Let's do two more. Last one. And then deep breaths come and go. Deep breaths come and go. Shoulders drop. Fingers have a little wiggle. Stretch out. We're going to lay down quietly for an experience of surrender, total surrender. Which we call, of course, Shavasana. Really take a little bit of time to make sure you're well prepared. Good preparation means laying yourself down so that you're warm and you're comfortable and the body is spacious. The head often needs some support. Spacious, symmetrical, palms up, shoulder blades scooted under. Make sure the edges of the collarbones feel like there's room around them. Make sure you've got any cheeky doggies nearby, that they're not being too cheeky, can't help themselves though. So return to the source means that which we grasped as separate, as mine, actually belongs to the whole. It's part of the whole. And so when we hear a phrase such as I consciousness, what we mean by that, what's meant by that, is that the mind has rested back into the source, back into the yoni, as it were, back into the goddess, back into the whole. I'll read just one sutra from the Shiva Sutra. Being an enjoyer of the rapture of I consciousness in the triad of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, she is verily the master of her senses. This pose is all about giving everything, anything that arising in consciousness now back to her, to use the metaphor. Being an enjoyer of the rapture of I consciousness in the triad of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. She is the master of her senses.
Now a little investigative movement. Toes, fingers, wrists, ankles. And when you feel ready, bend your leg. Place the soles of the feet on the floor and scoot under the buttocks. Take deep breaths and give. Surrender the lumbar totally. Just experience what that's like. And you know what? Whatever's arising now is what you have to give to the goddess. Anxiety, give that. Happiness, give that. Body weight, give that. Tense neck, give that. Memories of the past, give that. Breathing, give that. Circulation, give that. Whatever arises. You're ready, roll over onto your left side as comfortably as you can. Knees drawn up. And then onto your other side when you're ready. So whatever is arising, that's what you give. That's what you've got. She takes all gifts. Anger, fear, tranquility, craving, satisfaction. She takes all gifts. All donations are welcome. Begin to let in some light and color. You might rub your eyes, stretch out an arm or a leg. And when you feel ready to come up, you bring yourself up nice and easy from the side, using your arms to assist you. May you be happy and well and free of all mind-created suffering. May all beings be happy and free of mind-created suffering. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to see you all. Enjoy the day. Om. Remember, you've always got something to give. And